catch your eye? I'm sorry.
Hey Mike, we're ready on set.
All right, I'm just giving Mort a little something to drink. You look hot.
Expect them to grow?
I do. I hear they grow fast.
They do.
Ah! No, honest, it's from the hose. I promise it's from the hose. The tortoise is next. I give up. Somebody get that thing. Welcome back into the Jungle Room. I'm Michael Del Giorno along with Mike Wedekin and Chris Jones, and it was fun having a macaw, but as you can see, that was a stunt. This is actually a tortoise that we've rescued and had a calcium issue, so we'll probably start with that, but today in part 2 we're going to do tortoises, and these live a long time and they get very big, as you saw in our opening shot. So Chris, take us through this one, because he had was it a protein or a calcium issue?
So the issue with this animal was most likely a lighting issue. As they're young and they're developing, they need UVB lighting. These guys come from sub-Saharan Africa, where it's extremely hot and they're getting a lot of UV. And so as young tortoises, they need a little bit higher humidity, and they also need the correct lighting to metabolize that calcium. Otherwise they get what's known as soft shell, which is most likely what happened to this tortoise, and then it was put under the right lighting, and
it's building. Will it build back up, or it probably won't ever get its right shape?
It'll always be sloped down in the back like that, but it should live a happy, healthy life with a little bit of a distorted
and as it goes
shell.
down to New Orleans, yeah? Because they like a soft shell turtle down there. All right, so we're going to help this little guy have a long and healthy life. He may not be as gorgeous as he might have been, but he's going to be healthy. Tell us about the species, Mike, and because I like to do my one joke every time you say it.
This is an African spurred tortoise, scientific name Geoshalone sulcata.
And also with you. There you go. Shalom.
And it's probably one of the most common and popular tortoises to have in captivity, which is kind of strange considering they get so large. On average, an adult can, especially a male, can be right about 100 pounds.
Although your guy's pushing 125, right?
Probably thereabouts. You know?
And he's full grown?
He is full grown. He may get a touch bigger, but it's not going to be something that's substantially noticeable.
How long will it take him to get to 100
This
pounds?
one's representative of maybe about 1.5 years or so old, to where Johnny over there, he's about, I'm not really sure his exact age, but he's probably in his mid to late 20s.
Wow.
Yep, and they're very long lived. Just like the macaw that we had before, he is going to live on average of about 80 to 100 years. And so it's something that you definitely have to know the ins and outs of with their care, whether or not you're the right family and have the right setup and the space necessary for an animal like this.
Because eventually they move outside, they live in the backyard.
They do,
They free roam.
Yeah, mine, they live in the backyard when the weather's appropriate. So usually I'm putting them out in mid to late April. And they'll stay outside night and day until usually early October. I kind of start watching the temperature when we get close.
It seems like here we're in Middle Tennessee in the Nashville area, and it just seems like Halloween is that day.
Yep.
Where it always seems to get cold, doesn't it? On Halloween day.
Right.
So yeah, once it starts getting more like late fall cold, 30s right. I would think would be the number, right?
Yeah, I start watching the temperature, but not just the temperature, but the humidity. If it starts to rain more, anytime the humidity is higher than the temperature, their risk for getting respiratory infections, colds, just like us, but it's just a cold.
Get a COVID mask.
Upper respiratory infections can be common with these guys if kept too cool or too damp.
Now we say guys, male, female, and how to tell them apart.
Good question. When they're older, it's a lot easier to tell the difference. It's overall size. Males tend to be a little bit bigger, but I've seen some big females. But ultimately what we're looking at...
Like a crab, right? It's on the bottom of the shell.
Right, the subcaudal scutes here, you see different angles for a male versus a female. And also the the vent here at the end of the tail for a male is going to be closer to the end of the tail, where a female is going to have a shorter tail, and that vent open is going to be up towards the hip girdle. And the reason for that is ultimately just geometry. As they breed, the male has to have a longer tail in order to reach the tail of the female and be successful with breeding.
So they breed physically.
They do, yes. A physical copulation, and they do it on a pretty regular basis.
Are they live birth or egg?
They are eggs. The average female of good size, she's going to lay anywhere between typically 15 and maybe closer to 35 or so. I think the largest clutch I've ever had is about 24 or so.
And in the wild, where would they lay their eggs versus?
They're burrowers, and so they're gonna dig a hole, and they tend to dig test holes to where, not just to where they can make sure that they like what they're doing, but also to throw off the scent.
Very
of a
similar to
potential
chameleons.
predator.
Chameleons do that.
Right, and so they're gonna dig several, and then once they've got enough, they're going to usually at night deposit those eggs in a hole, fill it back over, stomp on it a little bit, and
We
rest.
should do that later in a chameleon show, but it's amazing what the female chameleon will do.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll build fake holes for the snakes to
Right.
mess with. And then when Eleanor was done, when I tell you meticulously, like it was just
Yeah,
when I
you
put it
couldn't
in,
tell.
you
Right.
could not tell. They're very workmanlike. All right, so in her particular case, in a breeding setting, you would probably put them in a.
No, with my female at home, I kind of watch her. I mean, she's big too, and so you can tell if she's started.
So
to
you
dig a
don't
hole.
incubate like you do chameleons.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yes, I do dig them up and incubate them artificially.
Right.
And that depends on the temperature, but on average, it's going to take 4 to 5 months or so, and at about 82 degrees. And then you'll have little baby tortoises, and younger tortoises like this one, especially a hatchling. Humidity is of the utmost importance, as well as the temperature. You want to have it to where their shells, or the carapace, is going to be kind of vulnerable for the first year or so of life. It's a little bit softer. And so if it's too dry in the
How would you
enclosure-
describe this, guy? It's almost like a fingernail, almost. Isn't
It is, yeah.
Yeah, very similar, like a fingernail. In terms of making the call as to when, presuming it's the right time of the year, how big before you do an area outside and feel comfortable? Like the terrarium, maybe for the first couple of years, or
Yep, for the first couple of years, you're probably going to keep it inside under artificial lighting, where you can keep it safe. And safety is really the main concern.
who likes to eat these guys?
I'm sorry?
Who likes to eat on them?
When they're small enough, birds, any type of little woodland creature,
Raccoons,
raccoons,
possums.
possums, anything like that, dogs, cats. Cats are probably the one I worry about the most. And that's a whole nother
And again, while they're
episode.
young, they're not as, like Joe over there, he can go inside a shell and it's going to take something pretty significant.
Right, yeah, and that's, so he's safe. He's safe, and his girlfriend is safe out in the backyard because they are too heavy to move without a lot of fuss. And if an animal can move them,
He deserves them.
knock yourself out.
Right, yeah. Joe's safe. But I want to make that distinction.
In the wild, one of the main predators for small tortoises are actually birds of prey that will pick them up and drop them. So they'll pick
crack
them
'em?
up, drop them like a clam, like a seagull would, crack them, go down, and eat them. I don't have too much concern for this one. I keep this one outside here during the good time of year. Another thing to mention, we were in Middle Tennessee. You have to know what your temperature gradients are. Originally, I'm from New Jersey, and I couldn't keep one of these outside in April in New Jersey. It would have to be mid to late May to start, and then
Much
they'd
shorter
have to come
season
in
outside.
and probably mid-September.
Now, when they're outside, they're just dieting on grass, right?
Here they eat basically clover and Bermuda grass. I have a large enclosure that my kids move around every day, and they'll clear a whole patch, and then we just keep moving it. If you look hard in my yard, you'll see checkers of these big 6x6 swaths that are tortoise chewed, and then as they get larger, my larger pair now, we're getting ready to build a large area to where they'll probably have maybe 200 or 300 square feet to where they could just roam.
I represent the everyday curious person. You guys are the experts, but it would seem to me when they get to be Joey size, they eliminate very large. People would be surprised at how much they can poop. So I just can't imagine without like a zoo type. I mean, they're pretty much at a certain size. It's got to be a dilemma, right? Because they almost have to be outside for most of the year.
I've got a decent sized backyard, and it's fenced in, and they've got the full run of it for the most part. And they do make quite the mess, and we go around on
Same thing, pooper scooper, but
right.
I'm thinking about like in the winter, where do you put them?
Well, the temperature in their when I take them into the garage, and they've got an indoor garage enclosure. The temperature is reduced, the humidity is reduced, they don't eat as much naturally because of that, and so their elimination is a whole lot more kind of subdued as well.
There's a commitment level to these.
For sure.
But there is, guys, you got to admit, just roaming in a backyard, it brings back notions of dinosaurs.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and there's something so tranquil about the visual.
It is.
They're very calm. I don't know that I would say affectionate, but how personality-wise, what are we looking at here?
They're very intelligent animals. Mine will follow you around, especially, and the female loves brightly colored sneakers. And so my wife, my daughter, when they're walking around, they try their best to follow around and see what that sneaker tastes like.
Is it a flower? Is it not? You know,
Because they will eat flowers and stuff too.
You can just see how God made them to just dig. I mean, these things are like digging machines. I wish people could feel them. And I'm thinking its rough name, not its scientific name, probably has to do with these spikes back here to protect where he or she is vulnerable.
Right. Yep, that is definitely right. They've got those spurs back there that protect them, but also it kind of has some breeding significance as well. But naturally, what these tortoises do, if they feel threatened, they're going to pull themselves in, and they use their arms kind of as a door, and then they kind of will jump and lunge if they feel threatened. And so they're good at digging, but also for protection.
Oh, sorry. My daughter's in the background telling us our larger tortoise is on the move. And so
He's going home.
I just wanted to.
He went all the way back to.
I was trying to communicate to her, just watch Johnny and make sure he doesn't take off into the woods.
Hello, Johnny.
Get up in some poison ivy or something.
Anything you want to walk us through in terms of just particulars about it? I mean, we've kind of done diet, enclosure versus...
Do a little bit more diet, because we touched on the natural stuff that's in our backyard when they're outside. But for the first couple of years and during the off season, you're going to have to take charge of their diet, because it's not going to be something outdoors that they can eat on easily. Things that you can feed them in captivity are any type of dark leafy greens. Romaine, collard greens, turnip greens, mustard greens, kale.
They eat like me. Those are my favorite greens.
Yeah, but they'll also eat, flower petals, and you can have tiny little bit of protein involved. There's some prepared tortoise kind of blocks and dry foods that you can incorporate as well. The big guys, they love watermelon and squash and zucchini and bell peppers, and then in the fall I'll start giving them pumpkin and things like that. So those are all things you can, and variety is the spice of life. And so when in captivity, you can incorporate as many as often as you'd like. They're not going to be fussy about it.
One thing to mention is there are several different tortoise diets on the market, and these are a grassland tortoise. So tortoises are kind of divided into grassland and forest tortoises. Your forest tortoises have much greater variety of food that they're eating in the wild. A lot of different fruits, anything that falls to the ground, tons of different types of plants that they're eating on. Whereas, these guys in captivity are probably getting a little bit more variety than they would actually get in the wild. Where they're from, the majority of what they're eating is just different types of grass. So it's important to note, because I can see it in Mike's eye, he's about to tell us about protein intake.
Right.
So
Yeah, because that's a lot of the difference between the grassland style diets versus the forest styles. It's got more protein involved in it. A lot of the tortoises that are found, say in Central and South America, like a redfoot,
Right.
for instance, or yellowfoot, they will naturally take advantage of a situation. So they're eating sometimes small mammals.
Carrion.
Right. And so that.
But in captivity, we would have to probably supplement them, right, with a calcium powder or a protein or.
Well, these not so much. They're the grassland style diets. Another topic for another day would be like a redfoot tortoise. And so yes, you would give them a more of a prepared diet that has a slightly higher protein content. But these, the only reason why I mention is that if you're buying prepared diets, you need to make sure it's aimed for this particular species and more of a grassland, higher fiber, lower protein, and to where just excess of protein is what is also going to contribute to the shell.
Doming, right. Now, it goes without saying, people probably buy a lot of these for their kids. They
Sure.
will be getting about full grown. If you bought it for your child at 3 years old, they're going to leave for college, and it's just about getting to full grown.
Well,
Yeah.
That's something for a parent to think about.
exactly.
And then you almost have to have an indoor-outdoor plan.
We're going to have to cut.
Okay, we have to cut.
I'm sorry. He's outside now.
He's just twice as
You should have seen her up there. She's trying to move him.
Where'd he go?
He's on the other side of the pen.
Down, please. He's not in the forest, is he? Oh. Oh, Mike. Man, you are one strong hombre. Holy crap. I can mess
Now
with you.
you were twice
Sure
as
he
much as
couldn't-
me.
What you, Chris? He's a pretty big
He
boy.
may be able to. I'm not gonna
That's like
try.
freaking doing 125.
Did you try to pick him up?
No.
I don't. Now that I just did that, he's heavy.
Pick him up and
Do you think he's 100? Maybe not.
Maybe
We're about ready to
a little shy of
close.
it.
So I can see a lot of people probably buy these for their young children. We'll bring up longevity again because you could buy this for your kids conceivably at 3. It's a great pet in their
Sure.
room, but then by the time they leave for college, he's just getting to be an adult and needing an
See
outdoor
him at
space.
an expo or online,
Yeah.
and they're as big around as a golf
Yeah,
ball.
they're about that size.
So I imagine we have a lot of people not knowing what to do with their tortoises. But
Right. That's why you see a lot of rescues, a lot of rehomes. That's how it came about. The pair that I've got is that they had gotten too large for the people that owned it.
Got to have a vision for inside and outside. Got to keep
It
those
is.
humidity levels right. Got to make sure the UV. I like to do this every time we bring up UV because we don't promote any one pet store, and with the World Wide Web, you can find anything anywhere. But
You
and
can.
all UV light bulbs are not the same.
No,
not
absolutely
by a long
not.
shot.
There's,
Not even the way they're made up.
No, like the style we went to with Duke. Explain that to them. That's as long as it's on, you know there's
Oh,
UV.
and that's something we need to talk about anyway with a baby tortoise is mercury vapor.
Right.
Well, and for a baby, I wouldn't even recommend a mercury vapor.
It'll burn them up.
It's going to be too hot. It's going to be too much. The UV index on one is way too high. Like we know these come from a very hot, very arid region. Babies stay tucked away in a burrow for the first year or so of their life, and venturing out just when it's safe. That's why that humidity, when it's they're naturally getting that when they're young, and helps with shell development. But also, when in captivity, if we put too strong of lighting, it can get burned. It can not just from a thermal burn, but
A radiation burn.
right. And so something that's made for that UV index that they would have naturally is what you want to shoot for. Something that has more of a linear T5
Yeah.
type bulb that's of a 10.0 kind of rating.
Desert high output.
Right. Because
So-
the differences between them is the amount of canopy cover that would naturally filter out the sunlight. And so in a forest type setting, you're going to have more canopy, and so you would use a UV index bulb that is a lot lower than one that's made for a desert type
Right.
setup.
Temperature, humidity, UV, diet specific to its species. Those are all the keys. An indoor-outdoor plan and a long-term plan.
You got it.
Definitely a long-term plan. These animals aren't too expensive. You can find them online for anywhere from $50 to $100 for a hatchling. Local shows, you can find them. You can find them some pet stores. I know further south you get, there's more breeders. So Florida, hotspots, Florida, Texas, Arizona, you can find these more readily available. But just keep in mind that this animal is going to be with you for a very long time, which is great. I mean, you know, we talk about chameleons, and we never had long enough with Eleanor. There's no question about it. But a tortoise, on the other hand,
You can get sick of them.
my tortoises will be willed to my children. So someday when I'm gone, my children are adults, one of them will be taking care of a tortoise that's still alive, like this guy.
And that's the tortoise on the Jungle Room. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to share with your friends, share on Facebook, share on Twitter. We want to grow our community because the goal is to celebrate these creations of God, find the one that's perfect for your home, and the more you're knowledgeable, from novice to advanced, the more able you are to give them a long and happy life for themselves and for you and your family. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Jungle Room.